Imagine waking up already tired, even after a full night of sleep. You eat reasonably well, you try to stay active, yet your body feels stuck. Your energy crashes without warning. Your weight feels stubborn. Your motivation comes and goes like a flickering light. You might blame willpower, age, or genetics, but what if something quieter, something invisible, has been steering the wheel this whole time? That something could be cortisol. Cortisol is often talked about as the stress hormone, but that label barely scratches the surface. This hormone is not the villain of the story. In fact, it exists to protect you. It helps you wake up in the morning. It keeps your blood sugar steady between meals. It mobilizes energy when your body thinks it needs to survive a challenge. Without cortisol, life would be impossible. The problem begins when cortisol stops playing its short-term role and starts running the show full-time. Modern life has a way of convincing your body that danger is always nearby. Not the kind of danger that requires you to run or fight, but the slow, grinding kind. Deadlines, financial pressure, lack of sleep, constant notifications, emotional stress that never fully resolves. Your brain does not distinguish between a real physical threat and an inbox that never empties. To your nervous system, stress is stress. So cortisol rises, and then it stays there. At first, you might not notice anything dramatic. You feel a little more alert, you push through fatigue, you rely on caffeine, but over time, the effects become harder to ignore. Cortisol starts reshaping how your metabolism behaves, quietly influencing how your body uses energy, stores fat, and responds to food. This is where the story gets interesting. Metabolism is often described as how fast or slow your body burns calories, but that definition is overly simple. Metabolism is really about balance. It is how your body decides when to store energy and when to release it. Cortisol has a powerful voice in those decisions. When cortisol remains elevated, your body shifts into preservation mode. It prioritizes survival over optimization. It becomes cautious with energy, even when food is available. According to available scientific understanding, cortisol signals the liver to release more glucose into the bloodstream. This made sense when stress meant physical danger. You needed quick fuel. But when stress is psychological and constant, that extra glucose has nowhere to go. That excess glucose lingers in the blood, pushing insulin levels higher and higher. Over time, cells become less responsive to insulin's signal, a state commonly known as insulin resistance. When this happens, the body struggles to move glucose into muscles where it can be used for energy. Instead, it gets redirected into storage, especially as fat around the abdomen. This is why chronically stressed individuals often notice stubborn belly fat, even when they are eating carefully or exercising regularly. At the same time, high cortisol interferes with muscle tissue. Muscle is metabolically expensive, meaning it burns calories even at rest. Elevated cortisol encourages the breakdown of muscle protein into amino acids, which the liver can convert into more glucose. This process, while useful in short bursts of danger, becomes destructive when it happens daily. Less muscle means a slower resting metabolic rate, so the body burns fewer calories overall, reinforcing the feeling that metabolism has slowed down. Cortisol also disrupts hormones that regulate appetite and satiety. It can increase cravings for quick energy foods, especially sugar and refined carbohydrates, while dulling the signals that tell you you're full. Sleep often suffers under chronic stress as well, and poor sleep further elevates cortisol the next day. This creates a feedback loop where stress, hormonal imbalance, and metabolic dysfunction quietly feed into each other, making weight management and energy levels feel like an uphill battle rather than a simple matter of discipline. Over time, cells can become less responsive to insulin, the hormone that helps move glucose into tissues. This does not mean disease is inevitable, but it does mean your body becomes less efficient at handling energy. Fat storage becomes easier, fat release becomes harder, especially in the abdominal region, where cortisol receptors are more active. This is not a personal failure, it is a biological response. Cortisol also influences appetite in subtle ways. Some people notice stronger cravings when stressed, particularly for foods that are quick sources of energy. Others experience appetite suppression, followed by intense hunger later. Both patterns can coexist in the same person at different times. The common thread is that cortisol disrupts your natural hunger signals, making it harder to trust your body's cues. Sleep is another major piece of the puzzle. Cortisol follows a natural rhythm. It should rise in the morning to help you feel alert and gradually decline as the day goes on. Chronic stress can flatten this rhythm or shift it later into the evening. When cortisol stays elevated at night, sleep quality suffers. You might fall asleep but wake feeling unrefreshed, or you might struggle to fall asleep at all, your mind racing while your body feels exhausted. Poor sleep then feeds back into the system, pushing cortisol even higher the next day. It becomes a loop that reinforces itself. Here is where many people feel confused. They try to fix their metabolism by eating less or exercising more. Sometimes this works temporarily, but if cortisol is already elevated, aggressive dieting or excessive training can be interpreted by the body as additional stress. Instead of speeding metabolism up, it can push it further into conservation mode. This does not mean movement or mindful eating are bad. It means context matters. Your body is always asking a question. Am I safe? When the answer feels like no, even subconsciously, cortisol stays elevated. And when cortisol stays elevated, metabolic flexibility declines. Halfway through this conversation, let me ask you something worth sitting with. What if your body is not resisting change, but responding intelligently to the signals it is receiving? Some reports suggest that people under chronic stress often describe feeling disconnected from their bodies. Hunger cues feel unreliable. Energy feels unpredictable. Motivation comes in waves. This is not because the body is broken, it is because the stress response is doing exactly what it evolved to do, just in an environment it was never designed for. Cortisol also interacts with other hormones. It can influence thyroid signaling, which plays a role in metabolic rate. It can affect reproductive hormones, which are sensitive to perceived safety and energy availability. It can alter how your muscles respond to training and how quickly you recover. None of this happens overnight. It unfolds gradually, which is why it can be so hard to pinpoint. You might look back and realize that the changes started during a particularly demanding period of life, a job that never let up, a long stretch of poor sleep, emotional strain that stayed unresolved. The body remembers these periods, even when the mind tries to move on. There's also a psychological layer to this. Living in a constant state of stress narrows your focus. It becomes harder to plan ahead, to feel optimistic, to make choices that support long-term health. This is not a character flaw. It is another effect of a nervous system stuck in high alert. The good news is that cortisol is responsive. It is not fixed. The body is remarkably adaptable when it receives consistent signals of safety and recovery. This does not require perfection. It requires permission to slow down in ways that feel genuinely restorative. That might mean prioritizing sleep without guilt. It might mean gentler forms of movement that leave you feeling energized rather than depleted. It might mean learning how to create moments of calm throughout the day, even brief ones, that signal to your nervous system that the threat has passed. Nutrition plays a role here too, not as restriction, but as reassurance. Regular meals can help stabilize blood sugar, reducing one of the triggers for cortisol release. Adequate protein supports muscle maintenance, which is metabolically active tissue. Balanced intake tells the body that resources are available, reducing the need for emergency signals. Mindset matters as well. When health becomes another source of pressure, cortisol can rise in response. Approaching change with curiosity rather than punishment can make a real difference. According to available research, practices that reduce perceived stress can improve metabolic markers, even without dramatic changes in diet or exercise. This is not about eliminating stress entirely. That would be unrealistic. It is about changing your relationship with it, teaching your body that stress has an end point. As we move toward the end of this conversation, here is a thought worth holding on to. Your metabolism is not just a calculator, it is a storyteller. It reflects the story your nervous system believes about the world. When that story is filled with urgency and threat, cortisol speaks louder. When the story includes rest, safety, and recovery, cortisol settles back into its supportive role. If you've been feeling frustrated with your body, consider offering it a different signal. Not more force, but more trust. Not more pressure, but more patience. Change often follows when the body feels safe enough to let go. And if this perspective resonated with you, take a moment to show it some love. Tap the like button so more people can find this conversation. Subscribe to the channel if you want to keep exploring how your body and mind work together. And I would love to hear from you in the comments. What signs of stress have you noticed in your own body, and what has helped you feel more balanced? Your experience matters, and someone else reading it might feel a little less alone.